tobacco deal. A terrible injustice has been done. And the worst part about this particular injustice is that it was perpetrated by 40 state attorneys general in collusion with the tobacco industry. These state officials were suing to recover expenses related to treating tobacco victims. As you might have heard, the settlement worked out with the tobacco industry involved the payment of a sizable chunk of change over 20 years, the elimination of cartoon characters in their advertising, as well as banning tobacco's use of billboards and advertising at sporting events, which does not on the surface sound like a bad deal. But for whom, you ask? It's not a bad deal for the tobacco companies, that's who. The kicker in this deal is that the tobacco companies get blanket immunity from any future lawsuits as the result of the heinous suffering, misery, and death they cause. I don't know about you, but I take the stock market as a kind of barometer of things business-related. When the tobacco deal was announced, tobacco company stocks went up. Write this down. When the stock market goes up, something bad has happened. You can count on this formula because the reverse is usually true as well. For example, if the official percentage of people who are unemployed goes down, the stock market goes down, so something good must have happened. Tobacco deal announced, stock prices, in the relevant industries in this case, go up, so this is bad. It means someone somewhere made a lot of money and the rest of us are going to pay. You can count on corporate America this way. What's good for them is inevitably bad for the rest of us. What's good for us is bad for them. The stock market is usually an honest reflection of the class struggle. Of course, now that I've said this, they'll probably be changing tactics. They hate it when we catch on to their games. Anyway, the thing about this tobacco deal is that the companies involved, who are, of course, criminally reckless and endangering the public health, are not actually being punished. They will complain for a long while about having their so-called free speech rights trampled upon by the government. That one I still haven't figured out. How is it that selling stuff, let alone poisonous stuff, is politically protected speech? The reason that I say that an injustice has been done is that I don't understand why these attorneys general felt they needed to make any kind of a deal at all. I know they were trying to limit legal costs so that whatever the judgment, more of it would be made available for medical costs. That makes sense, but did they really have to give blanket immunity? And why is it that public health concerns are made the subject matter of a deal to begin with? Other than people from distant planets, everyone knows that tobacco is dangerous, often lethal. People smoking is thus a public health concern. I know that people do things that are unhealthy, otherwise risky or out and out dangerous. I'm not suggesting that people can or should be prevented by force of law from doing these things. That's just stupid. Look at what a miserable failure the so-called war on drugs has been, or alcohol prohibition. What I do object to is the idea that just because people sell dangerous things, that they should be allowed to advertise these things. The deal has in total two very different and equally disturbing negative aspects. One is giving up the principle that the government has a role in protecting public health that overrides private profit concerns. For example, through banning the advertising of dangerous and addictive substances and subjecting these dangerous substances to FDA control, which, by the way, limiting the possibilities for FDA regulation was a part of this bad deal. Even worse is the blanket immunity from future legal action, a crime for which these attorneys general of the 40 states ought to be imprisoned. I just haven't figured out yet who can prosecute them. And then, of course, we come back to the stock market. The tobacco giants are going to pay billions of dollars, financed by an increase in prices, so they aren't even going to sacrifice their profits to pay the tab. They're just going to squeeze their pitiful nicotine junkies for more cash. There's no penalty. The tobacco industry lied, cheated, manipulated nicotine levels, and has killed millions of people with no significant consequences. So, of course, the stock market reacted favorably to the deal. It's a bad deal. Once again, ordinary people got shafted by corporate America and its puppet politicians. This is Richard Curtis.